Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something absolutely fascinating: how the world's absolute elite performers train their minds just as rigorously, if not more so, than their bodies. We're constantly seeing the physical triumphs, right? The gold medals, the championships, the historical conquests. But what's actually going on inside their brains before those victories ever happen? Well, today, we're decoding the mental conditioning that completely separates the good from the legendary.
Let's kick things off with this incredibly powerful philosophy from basketball legend Michael Jordan. He believed that the foundation of real-world success is built entirely in the mind first. Everything in life happens twice, once inside your brain and then in reality. Just think about the sheer weight of that statement. For the absolute best in the world, victory isn't some lucky surprise. It's already happened in their heads thousands of times before the actual physical event even starts.
So this brings up a pretty fascinating question. What are the exact mechanics of this elite mental conditioning? I mean, is there just one magic way to visualize success? Well, as we dig into the data, we actually find out that vastly different champions achieve greatness using completely different mental pathways.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the mind of a winner, then dive into Jordan's process-driven approach, Phelps's focus on outcome and contingency, and Napoleon's fear and survival tactics. After that, we'll hit the science of repetition and wrap up by figuring out how to choose your own strategy. Okay, Section 1, the mind of a winner, building the mental framework. Before we dissect our individual case studies, we really need to understand the underlying mechanism at play here.
The absolutely crucial point here is understanding procedural or explicit memory. When we repeatedly play out stories or actions on a loop in our heads, we are literally building neural pathways. We are physically wiring our nervous system for success, or, failure, before we even twitch a muscle. This internal storytelling directly dictates how well we're going to perform a task in the real world.
Moving into Section 2, Jordan, process-driven visualization, and activating neural circuits. Michael Jordan is basically a masterclass in this, fueled by a pure, unadulterated love for the game. Jordan didn't just sit around daydreaming about holding up a shiny trophy. He was relentlessly process-driven. He would mentally practice the entire match, step by step. He'd imagine, okay, getting the pass right here. Then he'd physically feel the mechanics of the shot in his mind, and finally executing the three-pointer. By doing this rhythmically, play by play, he was activating every single neural circuit over and over again. He lived the gritty mechanics of the game in his nervous system way before his sneakers ever hit the hardwood.
All right, Section 3, from the court to the pool with Michael Phelps. Outcome and contingency and realistic ideation. Phelps reveals a totally different mental game, especially when you're factoring his massive physical advantages, like that famous albatross wingspan of his.
What's super interesting here is the contrast. Phelps wasn't really visualizing the step-by-step stroke mechanics like Jordan visualized a jump shot. Instead, he used intense positive reinforcement focused squarely on the outcome. Every single night before bed, he visualized a flawless victory. But, and this is a massive but, he didn't just stop at the ideal scenario. He simultaneously visualized incredibly detailed contingency plans. He'd imagine winning even if disaster struck. What if my goggles break and fill with water? What if I get a late start? The thought of giving up just literally wasn't in his mental vocabulary. He was getting that win, period.
We do have to make a really important distinction here, though, between realistic ideation and just a pipe dream. Look, you or I could sit back right now and vividly visualize winning Olympic gold. But if I jump into an Olympic pool tomorrow, I'm sinking like a stone, right? All that mental prep is useless without the physical foundation. Phelps's visualization worked because it was backed by grueling, elite-level physical preparation. Being at the absolute peak of his game physically is what actually allowed his brain to realistically ideate those outcomes.
Let's shift gears for Section 4, Napoleon, fear and survival. The darker side of visualization. We are leaving modern sports completely behind and stepping onto the 19th century battlefield.
23. Now, that is not a winning streak. That staggering number represents the amount of different ways Napoleon Bonaparte would sit down and vividly imagine himself abruptly dying on the battlefield on any given day. Unlike Jordan's love of the game or Phelps' positive reinforcement, Napoleon was operating from a totally different psychological baseline.
He operated out of a pure fear and survival instinct. By deeply anticipating losing and dying, he was able to identify extreme battlefield threats before they even happened. He'd calculate how to pragmatically eliminate those 23 threats in his head first, employing every manipulative survival tactic he could think of.
Let's be real, if you didn't have that primal survival instinct back then, you were just a casualty. It's a remarkably dark way to visualize, but terrifyingly effective for keeping himself alive and victorious.
Moving to Section 5, the signs of repetition and pushing the impossible. How exactly do we bridge this gap? Because despite their wildly different core motivations, love, positive reinforcement, and raw fear, all three of these figures successfully hacked the exact same underlying science of repetitive memory.
It all really taps into the moon landing effect. As a species, pushing ourselves to believe in and ideate what feels completely impossible is our ultimate motivator. I mean, going to the other side of the moon sounded like absolute fantasy. But by ideating that ultimate goal, by seeing it in our minds first, we pull it into reality. Whether you're talking about sports, military conquests, or shooting for the moon, visualization is the bridge between the impossible and the real.
Which brings us to our final section, choosing your winning strategy and the legacy of the mind. How does this all build into a practical framework for you?
Let's synthesize everything we've talked about. The contrast here is just striking. You've got Michael Jordan with this joyful, process-driven mastery rooted in a true love of the game. Then you've got Michael Phelps, zeroed in on outcomes and contingency resilience, driven by positive reinforcement. And then, way on the other end of the spectrum, Napoleon, using survival and threat elimination rooted in pure fear and extreme pragmatism. They all reached monumental success, but their internal worlds could not have been more different.
So as you think about applying these powerful visualization techniques to your own goals, whether that's your career, a personal project, or just daily life, I want to leave you with one final thought. You can use love, you can use positive reinforcement, or you can even use fear to hack your brain's procedural memory. But which of these mental frameworks builds a legacy of sustained admiration 50 years later? Which psychological path creates a legacy you actually want to be remembered for? Definitely something to chew on the next time you close your eyes and visualize your next big win.